Good evening. On behalf of the Abingdon, Virginia Town Council, I'd like to welcome everyone to our July 2015 regular session. A couple things that we note prior to each meeting. First of all, in anticipation of our meeting, all of our council members receive a package of materials to help prepare us for the issues that we will be considering at our regular meeting. A copy of those documents is available on the table over to my left. You're more than welcome to review it. Also, we ask that everyone either turn off their cell phone, put it on stun or some other mode so we won't disturb the meeting. I've actually remembered to do it myself. So if you would, please take care of that as we go tonight. We do not have any public hearings this evening. But I would point out that there is a session a little further down in the course of our agenda where we receive input from the public for items that are not on the agenda. If there is anyone who wishes to bring an item before the council's attention this evening, they'll be invited to do so at that time. That being said, I will call upon our town clerk, Ms. Cecile Rosenbaum, to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Here. Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphreys?
Here.
Mrs. Lowe?
Here.
And Mayor Morgan?
Here.
And let the record reflect that all 5 council members are present.
Okay, thank you. We customarily begin our meetings with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I'll call upon our Chief of Police, Tony Sullivan, to lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, we have 2 sets of minutes for our consideration tonight. We have the June 1st, 2015 work session meeting minutes, and also the minutes from the regular meeting that was held that same evening. Are there any corrections or additions that need to be noted?
Mr. Mayor, on I can't see what page it is. It's page 78 in our council packet. On the motion of Ms. Lowe, seconded by Mr. Howard, the council appoints Cecile Rosenbaum to serve as the assistant town manager effective July 1st, 2015, and upon the recommendation of the town manager. I'd like that added.
Okay, what are we adding? That it was upon the recommendation of the town manager?
And set her salary. Mm-hmm.
There's probably a film to prove it somewhere, too. All right. Okay, so again, you're noting the salary and the recommendation of the town manager. Is there any other correction to be noted? Okay.
I move that we accept both sets of minutes with the noted corrections.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as corrected. Any further comment? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphreys?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, thank you. We have no petitions or public hearings as noted earlier, and that brings us to a presentation and an update on Johnston Memorial Hospital by Mr. Sean McMurray, who is Chief Executive Officer and the hospital and Northeast Market Director for Mountain States Health Alliance. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and distinguished members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to take a few minutes tonight and just give you a little update on things that are going on at our community hospital. We've been very busy. Volumes have increased, and we've grown a lot. But I want to point out a few things that you may not know about. First of all, obviously, quality is very, very important to us. In 2015, we've been ranked as a top 5% nationally for patient safety by a distinguished national rating service, and we take that very seriously and are very proud of that achievement. Also, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, publishes data, and we have repeatedly had very low infection rates at the hospital. Again, I think that's also very important for our community. Then finally, just wanted to point out that as far as sepsis care is concerned, which is a very, very serious, life-threatening illness, we were acknowledged by Premier, a leading healthcare group focused on performance improvement, that we provided exceptional care to patients with a diagnosis of sepsis, and we recently had representatives of our JMH medical staff who presented our success story at Premier's National Breakthroughs Conference. Also, Mountain States Health Alliance has an annual Quality Awards banquet, and this year JMH's sepsis team was recognized for the outstanding quality project throughout the entire system. So again, lots of exciting work going on behind the scenes to try to improve quality. Cardiovascular care, and this is actually a picture of Dr. John Patterson, one of our interventional cardiologists in our cath lab. Hard to believe, but we're coming up on our one-year anniversary of the implementation of our interventional cardiology program. It's exciting that we have this 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week program available in our community, and that life-saving procedures can be delivered to people close to home. In that almost a year since we opened the interventional program, we've done over 800 heart caths, including treating over 70 STEMI patients. Those are people who were in acute myocardial infarction when they came to our emergency department and were able to receive a life-saving procedure when they had their interventional procedure done. We also have re-implemented or reinitiated the implementation of devices at JMH. That includes pacemakers, defibrillators, and other technology. We also recruited a vascular surgeon, Dr. Ja Ferrante, who some of you have met. And Dr. Ferrante and the team in surgery are now doing vascular surgical procedures that we didn't previously do at JMH. Next, I'd like to talk just a little bit about critical care and pulmonary services. We now have 365 days a year critical care physicians staffing our ICU. Doctors Adada and Dr. Amana, who are both trained and boarded in critical care medicine and pulmonology, cover that service. They perform advanced procedures like endobronchial ultrasound, and they provide state-of-the-art care to the critically ill. Just to give you an example of the impact that's had, a year ago we routinely transferred 100 patients from JMH each month to higher levels of care in other hospitals. We now transfer about 20 patients a month, meaning those gentlemen and the rest of the team are able to care for people who are acutely ill, very critically ill, and so we can meet the needs of the community. Also, something that they do, they each have a clinic day following their coverage in the hospital. And one of the things they're doing is lung cancer screenings. We provide very affordable, low-dose CAT scan lung screenings for people who are at risk for lung cancer, and that allows us to identify early if they've got cancer. Here are some of our oncologists, Dr. Hamad, Dr. Tisdale, Dr. Davis. That team is getting ready to grow. Some of you may remember an oncologist who previously worked in our community, Dr. Tony DeSalvo. He's actually going to be returning and being a part of our oncology team. He'll be providing services to patients here in Abingdon, but he'll also help us with our outreach to Russell County, and he'll have a clinic up there as well. We're adding some new high-tech diagnostic tools. We're replacing our mammography equipment at the hospital with 3D digital equipment that essentially provides a service much like a little CAT scanner circling the breast, and it provides better diagnosis, earlier detection, etc. In our battle against breast cancer. The nurse navigators, we've got one now. We're going to be expanding to 3. And these specially trained nurses are actually helping patients to navigate what can sometimes be a really confusing path to treatment for cancer. And so we're excited about them as they, after a patient's diagnosed, they actually assist the patient through the treatment process by basically holding their hands and making sure they get to the right physicians and get the right tests done, etc. I want to comment about our residency training program. We've now got residents on site and we're officially a teaching hospital, which is really a great thing for our community. We've admitted our inaugural class of residents. These physicians include 6 family practice residents and 1 internal medicine resident. They'll receive their training primarily from the other members of the medical staff at JMH in their various specialties. And as they spend most of their time the first year in the hospital, family medicine residents in the future will be spending a fair amount of time in the clinic in their second year and third year. And so it became important for us to identify a clinic location. We have purchased 15,000 square feet of office space at the campus for us to be able to initiate that clinic this year. I want to just comment briefly about the economic impact of the residency program. First of all, one of the reasons we're really committed to this, it's not a big moneymaker. In fact, sometimes you lose a little bit of money on this program, but it's the rule of thirds. From experience in looking at other residency programs around the country, about a third of residents tend to actually stay in practice in the organization in which they trained. And we're very hopeful that that would be the case with the residents here, that we'll be able to hang on to a lot of those doctors and they'll end up becoming part of our medical staff. Another third typically stay in the community, whether they work with the organization that sponsored the residency or not. Now, each resident has an economic impact, about $100,000 a year. And so we have our full complement of residents, which will be about 30. Family medicine is a 3-year training program. Internal medicine is a 3-year training program. Ultimately, we'll have about 10 physicians per year. And so when we have a full complement of 30, that would be an ongoing economic benefit to the community of about $3 million a year. And that doesn't take into consideration those who actually decide to stay and practice medicine in our community. The economic impact then goes up from there. And the typical physician's practice would add $500,000 to $1 million of additional economic impact each year. And the other thing, too, we hope that having a good hospital and adequate healthcare providers will also make a difference in terms of our ability to attract industry to this community. I want to talk just a little bit about some new services that we're going to be bringing online. This is actually a picture of Dr. Tim McGarry, an orthopedic surgeon at the hospital, and our OR team. Many of you know we've been very, very busy. In fact, throughput has become a challenge for us, and we have often, in recent months, been holding patients in the emergency department waiting for beds to open up on the floor. So I'm pleased to share with you the fact that we're going to actually be adding some additional capacity on our 4th floor. When we built the hospital, we actually shelled out the 4th floor in anticipation of growing and eventually needing that space, but we're starting to tap into it now. We're hopeful that by Christmas we will have added another 12-bed unit, and then also we plan to put in a 6-bed chest pain observation unit. Nice Longer Children's Hospital, our region's only children's hospital in Johnson City, is a wonderful resource for our region. We are working closely with Nice Longer to establish a more robust pediatric program. You may know that we have some outstanding pediatricians in our community, they made the decision about a year and a half ago that they were going to focus on outpatient care. And so they're practicing in their clinic, their offices, but not at the hospital. And so we've been working on our pediatrics program. We've recruited some pediatricians who will actually work as pediatric hospitalists. That would be their responsibility, is just to take care of patients at the hospital. They'll also provide support to our emergency department, and each of them will also hold a faculty appointment with ETSU, and they will also hold dual medical staff membership at Niswonger Children's Hospital, so they can maintain relationships with the subspecialists located there. So we're excited to kick off that program. Doctors Johnson and Lundeen and boy, I'm blanking on the third one. They're coming this fall, so we look forward to having them cover the pediatric service at the hospital. We're also going to have Niswonger subspecialists who will be establishing clinics at the Medical Plaza building on campus at JMH. So we look forward to that as Niswonger continues to recruit more pediatric subspecialists. For example, this year they've recruited a pediatric neurologist, which is an exciting thing for our region. They also have a pediatric neurosurgeon now. They have just recruited a pediatric endocrinologist. So those are some new specialties down at Niswonger. We're hopeful that in the future some of those folks will actually be able to provide clinic for residents up here in Virginia. We continue to try to be good citizens in the community. Here you see a shot of us helping out with a United Way activity. Some of you may be familiar with their backpack program, and this is our team members trying to assist with that program, but we're big supporters of United Way. Also, we're really trying to support our educational system. We do that through a variety of means. We make contributions to the school system. We also have given scholarships to each of the high schools each year for as long as I can remember, to especially help young people who are interested in going into careers in healthcare. Also here you see pictured the John Battle scoreboard. We actually have donated scoreboards at Abingdon High School and John Battle High School, and soon there will be another one up, a new one at Patrick Henry High School. So we're excited to be able to support our local schools. We know that sometimes funding is very tight. We also feel like there are certain organizations within our community that are vital to our ability to recruit and retain physicians and other professional staff. And among those are the Berger and the William King Museum. And so we're pleased to be able to be sponsors of some of their programs. We feel like they're very educational, and they actually align very closely with our mission when we look at mind, body, and spirit, not just the physical health of people. Also, one of the most significant contributions we make to the community is we don't turn people away when they come for care. When they come to our emergency department, we take care of them. If they need to be admitted, we admit them. And our physicians provide that care. Last year, we provided almost $14 million of charity care to the people of our community. I also just wanted to make some brief comments about the proposed merger between Mountain States Health Alliance and Wellmont. You see the tagline, Better Together, and I would also refer you to a website that we've set up for the community called becoming-better-together.org. On this website, the public can follow the developments of the process. They can also provide us with feedback and their thoughts about things and about healthcare. And they can also sign up for our newsletter, which we're publishing and putting out to provide information about the proposed merger. Our vision is a fairly simple one. We believe that working together as a combined system, that we can focus our resources on trying to meet the complex healthcare needs of the people in our region. And that's the goal. We want to try to help improve the overall health of the people of this region. We think that that's critical to our future ability to attract and retain new business and industry and create jobs in this region. Now, just a couple of comments about that process. Right now, you're not hearing a lot. We're actually working, Mountain States and Wellmont, on coming up with a definitive agreement to govern this relationship, and that's likely to take us another couple of months. When we finish that, we will then submit our plans to the respective states, Virginia and Tennessee, for their review and approval. We don't anticipate that that's going to be a real quick process, and it may take into the next year. During this period of due diligence and government approval, we are going to continue to operate as we always have. We'll continue to compete. I know that sounds ironic, but we'll just assume that it won't happen, but the reality is we're very hopeful that this will happen, and it's in the best interest of the community that it would serve our residents well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or address any of the topics I've presented.
First of all, thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure to hear that things are moving forward with, first of all, our local hospital, and that exciting things are happening there. I was pleased to hear that some new beds are going to be added, and how many will that bring it to when it's completed?
It doesn't change our licensed total, and that's a complex discussion I'd have to give you, but that would give us an extra 18. Right now we have 116.
Okay. All right,
So it should increase our capacity by about 15%.
Very good. Do others have questions?
How much space will you have after that?
We built the fourth floor to be able to actually include about 54 beds, so we still have space. I think any future expansions would require actually an increase in our licensed bed capacity.
Very good. Well, there's certainly some wonderful services to, it's a great thing to see them provided locally, and to not have to travel, long distances to get that type of care. And, again, I'm pleased with what's coming along, and hopefully things will move forward with the proposed merger, and we'll see a lot of steps forward for health care in our community in the near future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. And we also have a presentation this evening. It's consideration of the Sinking Spring Cemetery Annual Report, and I see our chairman, committee chair, Mr. Dave Winship, is with us tonight.
Mr. Mayor and members of the Town Council, I don't think there's any implied undercurrent of my following the presentation of the director of the hospital, but this is a report of the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee, and I'm glad to have the opportunity, because one of those, just like Hank Williams said, we're not going to get out of this alive. The cemetery is in active use by more living than deceased during this past year. This includes visitors to the cemetery and to the Cummings Cabin. And I'll point out that during the Highlands Festival, both this last year and this upcoming year, there have been cemetery tours conducted by the Historical Society of Washington County, and the upcoming one is scheduled for August 1st at 5:30 p.m. There's also a commemorative event held at the Cummings Cabin this past week on July 4th. So the cemetery has been a vital part of the town. As regarding the maintenance of the cemetery, Kevin Lowe and his staff continue to do an exemplary job of overseeing the cemetery maintenance. Kevin does a pre- and a post-mowing inspection, and that has helped in the maintenance and the keeping of any kind of destruction that could be inherent in a lot of motorized mowers being around fragile tunes. There's been an effort to trim trees who have been growing, whose canopy has impacted on several of the burial sites and plots to raise the canopy, and that's helped both the attractiveness as well as the safety in the cemetery. There has been an attention to there are invasive plants and weed species that are creeping in, and they have been there's a continuous effort to address those creepers in the cemetery, and there's a real concern for the condition of some of the older tombstones, both their deterioration and the breakage of some of them, and unfortunately there's no real good answer to what to do about this. Some of them are just deteriorating, and so I just bring that to your attention that if we're going to preserve some of our older monuments, we've got to pay attention to them. Last year, the council heard of ongoing efforts towards mapping the cemetery, and this continues. The IT director, Floyd Bailey, has the mapping software and has indicated that with the effort of about 6 volunteers and 3 town employees, the mapping could occur within about a week. So marshaling those kind of volunteers to do that, we've put out feelers through the scouts who have been involved in mapping efforts in the past, and we'll probably try to continue during the rest of the summer to locate some folks that can help with that. And involvement of volunteers in the cemetery has been mentioned, and the possibility of asking volunteers to adopt segments of the cemetery to keep them in good shape. And finally, one of the committee members, Jack Frost of Frost Funeral Home, has offered to provide the cemetery with a small columbarium at no profit to himself and no cost to the town for use in the cemetery. And the committee would like to further study this. This would help and get to gauge the interest and the needs of the community in having columbarium space in the cemetery. This could give us data for the development of a possible larger columbarium for the cemetery in the future, along the lines of what has been proposed and the study that we had done last year. So that's an update about what's going on in the cemetery, and appreciate the offer. I don't know, I'll be glad to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. The cemetery looks good.
It looks very good.
You know, it's been a real asset to the community and a source of pride for us to see it protected and, preserved for the future. And, you hate to say that people are dying to get in, but as Mr. Frost has noted, there are people who want to be buried there, and he's very frequently asked about that, and there's no room in the inn at the present time. So it's hopeful that some columbarium space in the future might very well be desired there.
Okay. And then to echo what Mayor Morgan said about the usage of the cemetery on a living person basis, he and I were privileged to be able to attend the 4th of July celebration that the Black Sport chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution put on this past 4th of July. It was a wonderful event. All the children that had won the respective essay contest read their respective essays, and it was a nice. And the cemetery looked wonderful, and we were very, 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 very proud of it. And then to go into the columbarium, I know that in being in Bristol today and coming back up Euclid Avenue at the Catholic Church, I was very surprised that they have 5 or 6 banks of columbarium that they have put in. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously it is a service that has progressed greatly since, in just the last 10 years. So.
I'll forget the statistics. Maybe either Mr. Kelly or Mr. Winship can remind me, but I think Jack Frost indicated that there had been a major shift over the last few years in terms of families using cremation as opposed to burial
I don't remember the particular figures, but even just in the last few years, there has been a notable shift.
Yeah, when we first started looking at this and we polled the funeral directors, there was the indication that, between 1% and 2% and were cremations, and then those 1 or 2, not a lot of them wound up in columbariums. And I believe Jack at the meeting the other day said that number was somewhere up around 25% now, if I recall.
Rapidly changing.
Yeah.
And so he certainly felt like there was it was something that was going to be happening more and more in the future, and again, that there were a lot of people that wanted to be interred or have their urns placed there at Sinking Springs, and again, there's not space available under the present circumstances.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I would just also add and point out that with the columbarium that Mr. Frost has agreed to provide, we touched on the need to go before our Historic Preservation Board to get the outer workings of it so that it blended properly into the cemetery. So Jack would basically be providing, I think, the internal parts of the columbarium, and then we would have to build the face structure around it.
Well, so either Mr. Winship or Mr. Kelly. So does that mean that we would try to at least implement some of the plans that were provided by Quinn?
I think eventually, I think what we talked about was letting Jack do this as sort of the test pilot, and in a section right as you came into the cemetery, and then we would still explore the spherical, what I call the football section out there, the old part of Russell Road, as a possibility of putting in a memorial wall and some additional columbariums at that location at some point down the road.
Well, Quinn's design, called for brick and kind of, it was very, very nice looking.
I think that kind of facade could be utilized in this initial effort, regardless of the whole plan that had been envisioned.
I would hope that I would trust.
Yeah, brick and natural stone was two of the things that we discussed.
But I think you're correct that the Historic Preservation Board would need to sign off on what we're doing there at that cemetery, as would, there's several stakeholders. There's certainly the committee, and the Historic Preservation Board would have to, again, sign off also. All righty, any other questions?
Are we still locking that up at night?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
Pretty consistently.
Yes.
I've noticed the...
Could y'all please speak into your microphone?
Okay, thank you for reminding us. I appreciate that.
Are we still locking up the cemetery at night?
And I believe that happens on a consistent basis. I noticed one of the police officers the other day when I was going to work was out unlocking it, so that was a good sign. But certainly the fence and the locking it up at night has gone a long ways towards controlling the vandalism problems we've had in the past. It's been a good move.
Do we use the cemetery in our tourism efforts? I know that sounds strange, but in Atlanta and in Richmond and in all of in Savannah.
Well, I think that this effort by the Historical Society is one example of steps in that direction about highlighting some of those who are interred here. I know that even when and this is a little aside, but even when the cemetery is locked, there is an effort by some folks who want to come and visit graves that are there. But I think that the tourism possibilities we're aware of them, and I think it's being used. There's a real good walking tour that's available because a lot of folks do come to town.
That walking tour is available also. There's a pamphlet on the front of Coming Cabin that has a little box that you can pick those up in. And it's also one of the things that we kind of slips under the rug. But Stephen Alonzo Jackson, there's a group of probably 500 or more that travel to Abingdon every year. And he was the founder or the perpetuator of Kappa Sig. So, they come down there. You can always tell his tombstone because it's the whitest one down there because they clean it and make sure that it's well taken care of. So.
Yeah, they say that his grave is kept clean.
They do.
And sometimes they've been there visiting after dark, too.
Yes, absolutely, I'm sure.
Yeah, so, but anyway.
Stephen knew no bounds.
That's right. Well, it's a real asset to our community and very much a link to our past, and it's been a wonderful thing to see it taken care of.
Mr. Winship, I'd just like to thank you. I saw you volunteering for Main Street on Friday night. I know you're probably now past president of the Washington County Rotary Club and volunteering for us for Cemetery Committee, so thank you for your interest and your involvement in all of
Thank you
it.
very much. I appreciate it.
And he and I chant together about everything.
And let's throw in the muster grounds because he's down there and he is a great reenactor for us.
So, thank you. Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay. We have a request for funding from the Old Grade Antique Tractor Club Association. And I think Mr. Phil Vinson, who is the treasurer, is here to talk to us.
Thank you. I brought our president with us too, Ron Stevenson, so we had offered the presentation for operating monies for the Old Grade Antique Tractor Association in the work at the Fairview and the things that we've been trying to preserve and build. And our request that we had presented at the regular budget meeting was for a total of $23,139, which included the preparation of the land and for planting and harvesting of our crops. And we have already had most of this done already. For this year, we're in the process of getting a lot of it done. We also had a request for a building for storage, which was a 12 by 30 by 60 to preserve some of our equipment that we have restored. A lot of it's old, over 100 years old. And we also are in the process, and we now have got it started setting up, is our 1856 A.B. Farquhar sawmill, and we've got it in place now and set up on the grounds, and we don't like much more having it ready to be in operation. We still need the monies and the funds for building a shed over it to protect it. And the other is maintenance and the show events that we'll be having in the coming year.
And how much assistance are we looking for?
Mr. Mayor, maybe I can clarify this a little bit, because I got a phone call about this and I looked it up. And apparently during our budget work session, what we intended on, I called Jane and she had the same note and Rick had the same note. I didn't call Bob because I was out of town, but I had three of us had the same note that at the end of last budget year, we were going to give the tractor club $15,000. And then I think how we missed it was we didn't have our allocations in our April packet, and so we didn't catch it or see it. But we had actually talked about giving them $15,000 out of last year's allocation.
That was the intent of
it slipped through the cracks. It's nobody's fault. It just got overlooked. And so I think what you're asking for is $15,000. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, what we did, they agreed on the first that they would give us $20,000, but $15,000 now and another $5,000 after July.
Right.
And that's what was presented to us at the time.
Okay.
Is that what?
That's what I've got.
So it may be that we're ready to make a motion.
Well, I've got a couple questions. The council asked to have at $150,000 to start with without that allocation. So I guess my question is there anywhere in the budget that you can find that $15,000? I know we have several contingency lines, but,
I don't think there's another place in the budget to come up with that, but I do want to point out that part of where this arose is that at the very next budget meeting, the issue of Field's Pen came up and having to shore up Field's Pen, and at that meeting, the council appropriated the full balance of its contingency to...
We did appropriate the full balance, but what happened was the April packet that we got didn't show what we appropriated. It showed what was requested, but not what was appropriated. So in April, no, it's nobody's fault. It was just that we overlooked, we had all those budget meetings. And so when we asked Chuck how much was left, that $15,000 wasn't counted. So, it was nobody's. I guess what I'm saying to you is we all intended on making sure that we had appropriated that $15,000. It was just an oversight. So having said that, and we don't have any other line items that could cover that. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, you could go through probably every department and pick.
Well, that's
No, that's fine.
not where
No, that's not one of the
Yeah,
things.
no, there's no big contingency fund that's
Okay.
not shown.
So having said that, I move that we give the Glade Tractor Club $15,000 out of council contingency.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to allocate $15,000 to the Old Glade Tractor Association from our contingency funds, and the money will be used for the ongoing construction and maintenance of the property out there. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll.
Mrs. Deering. Aye. Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Moore.
Aye. Thank you very much, but I'm going to take this moment to just say that I made a visit to the Fairview property here about a week or 10 days ago. I was, nobody was there at the time, but I was really taken at how neat and well-maintained and how good everything looked there on the property in terms of, first of all, the crops that were planted, the demonstration crops that were out there of the heritage corn and so forth, which you guys are working with White's Mill on to have them, grinding and selling, heritage corn. And I noticed the other crops that were there, and the flax that have been planted and everything. It really looked good. And it's a wonderful thing to see that property come alive and be used for, really the purposes that we've had in mind. And I think this has been a great partnership that we've had with these folks, and really accomplished an awful lot there. I do hope I can get with y'all here before the year's over, something to talk about a demonstration bee project out there, if we could find the place and figure out what we need to do. But and you might also remind us, when is the festival that you folks have?
There you go, Mr. Mayor.
It's coming up in about 3 weeks.
And what are the dates for that, please?
23, 24, and 25.
Of July. I would encourage y'all to come out and take a look at it. I was fortunate enough to get out there last year, and it was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Really.
We had a real good show last year. It's on the best banana.
Yeah, it was really something. The number of antique tractors and other vehicles that were out there demonstrated. I saw the parade that you had there on the property, and it's not many times when you'll see that type of vehicle in a parade, and I hope our press representatives are going to be out there too, taking it in, because it's well worth seeing and going out there, and it's a great use of that property. Mr. Humphries, anything you want to say?
The only other thing I was going to say is it's kind of a memorial kind of thing I want to say. Nub Bauer donated a wonderful loom that you can be seen out there, and the effort was made to go get the loom. Mr. Bauer was in Florida, and I hate to say that Mr. Bauer passed away about 2.5 or 3 weeks ago now. So, I know that we thanked him, but, officially I'd like to have it on the record whether we thanked Mr. Bauer, Mr. Nub Bauer, for his generosity in literally giving us that loom, so.
Well, it looks good, and I hope everybody will mark their calendars and come out for that occasion. It's a great day.
Yeah, we'd like for all of you to come out and visit and see what we've done and what we've accomplished. And we've been working on the Bun Center right now, and we just about have it up and ready to go. So we'd invite each and every one of you to come out and see what we've done with preparing the property and what we've accomplished and getting it done.
Somebody told me you'd cut the wheat out there just recently.
We did
Last week.
Last week.
Yeah, but we saved some to cut during the show.
All right, very good, and I guess there's thrashing and whatnot to be.
We're going to thrash down the show, yeah. We'll have events every day. We'll post them, and we'll have events every day of times of doing thrashing and.
One of the things I think that you might want to do,
Read my mail.
and you might already be doing it, but Kevin Costello that we have here is a wonderful resource. I'm sure if you would contact probably Kevin's office, he'd be glad to post some stuff in there about the but Kevin's a wonderful resource, and I'm sure he would be glad to help you all. Make sure it's posted on the town website so that people coming in town would know it from that website also. So Kevin's sitting right back there. Nod his head up and down.
Yeah, keep tourism informed of your activities because, okay.
We take pamphlets and stuff.
We produced a pamphlet that we've been putting out about the Fairview and about what we do up there.
Okay.
Do y'all have a Facebook, Ryan? You have a Facebook page
For
the tractor club? Yes, they do.
And a website.
And we have a website also.
That's right.
All right.
One thing that's took a drain on our finances was the Bun house. We didn't anticipate that donation, but we were really excited about getting it.
Yeah, it's got a bathroom in it, right?
has a
Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine going to Porta John after dark with a flashlight?
Yes, I did it until I was 12. All that house.
We like maybe one more day and I'll have all that in operation.
All right.
I've been working on it now.
It turned out to be a real old house, real old. The glass in it is the same glass that's in the cabin.
Wow.
And
And the walls.
yeah, we've had
The clapboard's homemade. And
the vinyl siding outside just disguises the age of the house.
Will that be coming off, Ron?
Yeah, in the future, when we can accumulate more funds. What we'd like to do, if it turns out to be feasible, is saw something on the saw mill. We could go around
To go on in, yeah.
Well, one of the things I know we've talked about, and I know something that one of our newest board member, I guess, is Emmett Yeary. And Emmett's real excited about possibly having Ron and all of the mill wood to construct a blacksmith shop. So it'll be a blacksmith shop that's actually made on site, just like it would have been when this house was built. So I think that's a really exciting. And Emmett's indicated that he would help us try to find inventory for blacksmiths.
You know, for several years, I came on the council right when we accepted that gift, or right after we accepted the gift of the property. And I'm amazed at how much you all have gotten done in a little bit of time, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Okay, anything else?
I reckon it's all. Come see us.
We will. All right.
Be sure to go through the Bun house and see what,
Yeah, I want to.
it's really town property. So you need to check out what your caretakers have.
All right, very good, sir.
Well, thank you a lot. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Keller, we have, next item is confirmation of Director of Human Resources. with Ms. Stacy Reichler. Would you care to lead us through this, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm very pleased to inform the council that we were able to hire Stacy Reichler last month, and she's been with us for a few weeks now, and already doing a bang-up job in leading us in the right directions in the Human Resource Department, and pointing out some new and improved things that she would like to do and that we're working through. She's very capable and qualified individual. She has a Bachelor's of Business Administration from King University. She also has a Master's of Business Administration with emphasis on human resource and health care management. And she's spent the last 14 years in the human resource field, and we were lucky enough to steal her away from an organization, I guess you could say, and we're very pleased to have her here on our team, and her office will be up on the administrative floor just down the hall from my office and Ms. Rosenbaum's office. And with that said, it is my strong recommendation that the council confirm her as the new Director of Human Resources for the town of Abingdon.
Very good. Now, does anyone have any questions of either Mr. Kelly or Ms. Reichler about this? Okay, and I would gather an appropriate motion might be that we confirm her appointment.
Hiring.
All right, her hiring as opposed to an appointment.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that upon the recommendation of the town manager and the assistant town manager, we confirm Stacy Reichler as the Director of Human Resources.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to confirm the hiring of Stacy Reichler as Director of Human Resources. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call upon our town clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering. Aye. Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Morgan.
Aye, thank you. Very good. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right.
Look forward to- Do you survive your kid going? My son is at West Point. I just dropped him off last week, and so it's been a full week of Beast so far. He's got 5 to go, but we're all hanging in there. Thank you for asking.
All righty, very
Appreciate
good.
it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Kelly, the next item is a request for funding for reimbursement for accounting services for the Alliance for Rural Health. Would you care to present that to us, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this came up at a recent meeting of the Board of Directors for the Alliance for Rural Health, and that's under the leadership of Dr. Jake Schrum, the president of Emory and Henry College. And it was presented and discovered that there was an outstanding accounting bill for the services of Spiegler and Blevins in the amount of $5,738.21, and those services were rendered to the Alliance when they were making the change of getting out from under the original organization of King University and establishing itself. It's Dr. Schrum's recommendation that this is something that should be paid, and that the three main partners to the Alliance for Rural Health, namely the town of Abingdon, Emory and Henry College, and Johnson Memorial Hospital, split that the cost of that bill, which would bring the town share to $1,912.73.
Very good. And again, we noted that was for the establishment of the corporation, which we were part of getting set up, and remained part of that corporation. I'll entertain a motion regarding this.
Mr. Mayor, I move we appropriate $1,912.73 as our third of the accounting services for the Alliance for Rural Health out of council contingency.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering. Aye. Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Thank you. And that brings us to matters that are not on the agenda. And I have a feeling that for starters, there's some that have already slipped my attention that we needed to address. They were mentioned down below. Could I have some help on that?
One of them is the stream restoration project, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And the authorization for Town Manager Kelly to enter into sign the application for permit.
Okay. All right. I will mention that we had an extensive presentation downstairs. We do have a stream restoration project that's being done on Wolf Creek over in the Mustard Grounds. Ms. Melanie Carter gave us a presentation of the design and how that will work. I found it as a fisherman a very exciting project that we're looking at. It's really designed to restore brook trout to the stream that runs through the historic Mustard Ground property. It's being done in partnership between the town of Abingdon, Trout Unlimited, and the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. And looks like the funding is in place, and it's anticipated that if all the permits are approved, it will come together hopefully as early as October, but it could be up in the winter when the work will be completed. Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries is stocking 3- and 4-inch brook trout in there at the present time, and we're looking forward to having this exciting asset in our community, and some work on stabilizing the creek banks, creating an educational facility regarding riparian waterways and fisheries for the community, and a good place to fish right in town. And it doesn't get much better than that. That being said, I would entertain a motion that we authorize our town manager, Mr. Greg Kelly, to sign the application to the Corps of Engineers for the appropriate permits required to move this forward.
Yes, sir, I'll make that motion, sir, with the caveat that he can sign any other accompanying documents.
Thank you, that's a good caveat. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize our town manager to sign the application and any related documents for the required Corps of Engineers permits for this project. Any further discussion? Hearing none, if you call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Are there any other items that I'm...
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if you'll recall, John Dew from Public Works Department presented a list of 4 vehicles to be declared as surplus in a memo to me, which was presented by Mr. Dew to the council at the work session. That memo is dated June 29th, 2015, and it lists 4 vehicles by VIN numbers, and I would request that the council declare those as surplus so that we will be able to either put them on our online auction site or to offer them up for sealed bids.
Okay.
I'll make that motion that we allow to surplus the 4 vehicles described in that memo. Do we need to read what they are?
I don't think so. We have the memo as a supporting document.
Okay.
Okay. And I bet your memo says that we're declaring them surplus and allowing them to be...
Allowing them to be sold online auction site as
Okay.
public surplus.
Or by sealed bids.
By sealed bids.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat that there, but I believe we have the gist of it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion or comment? Yeah, there's some real bargains there, folks. So if we're declared of surplus, anyway. Okay, any further discussion? If our clerk would call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, now, does that take care of the housekeeping? Any other items? I bet there's some folks here that would like to bring some issues to the council's consideration this evening, and if you would care to come forward at this time, or anybody who wishes to speak to us.
Hello, Rich McBeth, 1139 Panoramic Drive, Abingdon, Virginia. I know we don't have a compliance officer anymore. There's some issues going up on top of Panoramic Drive that concerns us up there. There's a individual that owns a piece of land up there that sprayed a bunch of stuff up there, a concoction of chemicals that was very pungent, and it's turning everything black up there on an area where the sinkhole is, up there on Panoramic Drive. And not only that, is there's a lot of areas that are not being, people are not taking care of the properties. We have 2 houses up that are empty, and they're not being taken care of. And there's another individual on that same street that's not taking care of their property either, which is making it harder for the rest of us that are taking care of our property up there. But what we're really concerned about is what they sprayed up there, and they've got this wire, the orange construction webbing up there, so it's very easy to find, and it's now all the vegetation is actually black. It's not even brown or dead, but it was a very pungent smell, and we have some individuals up there that got health problems, especially with lung problems like myself and a few other people up there that live up there that were very concerned about that.
So, I know that we are in between compliance officers. Mr. Kelly, if you care to comment.
Yes, we are. We did lose our code enforcement officer to another job within the town, but we're in the process of trying to sort out the direction of code enforcement, and we'll be having some meetings later on this week to try to get something in place so that will move back into a position to where you'll at least have somebody to be a point of contact for these types of things.
I would like to have somebody at least come up there and check that one property out, because I guarantee you it's not proper chemicals we use.
Right. We can drive up there and take a look at it.
So, thank you.
So are we going to replace the code enforcement officer? Is that what you're...
We don't know yet exactly which direction it's going. We've got some internal issues, staffing-wise, staff deficiencies, and, we're going to have to work through some of those issues and then determine what the best method is of code enforcement in the future.
Well, I've had several complaints. I think other council members have had complaints this summer and no one to really report them to. And I think that Mr. Macbeth, with these questionable chemicals, whether we don't know whether they're good or bad, just probably puts the focus on the need to have a compliance officer. To have somebody out there doing enforcement on a daily basis. We certainly know from having one in the past, there are issues out there that need to be brought in compliance.
Well, and again, I know it's a process too, of having the person properly trained and certified for the work too. But I gather you're exploring a variety of processes.
We are exploring several different ways of handling this to address what Mr. Humphreys is saying. I do think a vital component is having someone out in the field to look for the problems. And it may be that there are multiple members of town staff who can address them once they are ultimately identified. So I think probably here by the next council meeting, we should have a plan of action in place to move this forward.
And I gather at the next meeting you'll give us a report about that.
Happy to.
One of the things, and Mr. Kelly brought to our attention before, and I totally agree with him, is there was a lot. We had someone that was at that time a lawyer that had not passed his board yet, out trying to get to enforce the regulations, and he didn't have a very successful time. Yeah. But when someone that had a uniform on that was official, that was what the police department went out, he got respect and he actually got the job done. So that's I'm just saying that we saw results from when we had that.
Yes, we did, and that badge proved to be very useful, under those circumstances. But we certainly are receptive to, examining our process on this. But clearly, there's an ongoing need for this kind of activity. Thank you very much, and I'll bet Ms. Woolwine might want to say something to us tonight. And feel free to come forward.
I did not get. I guess I.
If you don't mind.
I have to be official.
And we do all know you, but we'd appreciate it if you'd state your name and address.
Janet's a little bit better up here if you can come up here. We can hear you a little better.
that mic's not working very well.
No.
Yeah.
These are what I'm going to talk, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you.
And first thing you're going to tell us is that
Did you go to law school?
the first thing you're going to tell us is that you're Janet Woolwine and you live in...
That's what I get to the,
Okay. All right.
Don't rush her, Mary, don't rush.
I will. Going along with the program.
I feel like I'm being rude to those people, so I apologize. My name is Janet Woolwine. My residence is 185 Crestview Drive. I have 3 businesses in the floodplain, and that's what I've come to talk to you about. In 2008, I entered the small business world, and in 2009, I bought and renovated and repurposed a little house at the corner of Pecan and Railroad Street, and that's when I entered the floodplain. Downstairs in your meeting room, there's an old map on which Park Street is named Water Street, and that should have told me something, but it didn't. Excuse me. And so for 6 years now, this has been a combination of things because the railroad didn't keep the ditch cleaned out. It's a very, very low area. I didn't realize how low it was. And this last weekend we had some really heavy rains. We have had rains, not quite that heavy, but for 6 years, it's been a thorn in my side, and so I've been a thorn in your side. And this time I brought pictures. So I don't know how to show them and you. Shall I start them with Cecile, or?
No, why don't you show them to us and then you turn around?
Okay. This...
Wait, Janet, just wait a minute. I know she sent these to the IT department, to Floyd. Okay.
I have a copy too, and I'll make you some more if you want. This was Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock on Railroad Street, and you can see where it's this far up the bank of the toward the railroad tracks, and it's almost flooded across wise there. This is the same looking east shot about 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. And you know, it rained 4 or 5 more times after that. Also looking east. This is to the west over here toward Light Milling Company. And you can see that it is just about flat here. So anybody coming along here doesn't realize that there's a railroad ditch down there. It had flooded clear across there. This is also looking west from a likely Yarns parking lot is right over here.
Where all the hay debris is headed, is that probably?
Yes, yes. The ditch had been cleared out and grassed and loose hay put on it, and then hay bales put on it. So I don't know if this was a bale that had disintegrated or if it was the loose hay that was coming down. This is an enlargement of the one looking east. So you can see how it's, the drain under here had clogged up by that time. Part of it was...
And the reason?
Because the 2 bales had floated under there and jammed up. This was Saturday morning. When the flooding had gone down, there's water beginning to run down here, but you can see where the high water mark is right under the tracks. So it came that close to going over the tracks and away. But since I'm lower, I was easier. Same thing. And here's when it got personal. Because this is the street out here, The parking lot comes in here, and you can see where it's washed the hay across the street, across the flower bed, up into the yard, and then in a later picture, here, there are two high water marks. There's one row of straw here, and then it comes across over here also. Same flower bed, same straw up into the yard. And here's the scary part of it. The other was an inconvenience, but this is the scary part. Here, right going under Pecan Street, there are 3 drains on this property. One over on the railroad side, and then 2 on my side, one on my property and one on the town property. Here, right there, and you can see how high the water has come, and it's trying to get, because of the lay of the land, it's trying to get to the drain, but it can't, because the straw has snagged up on this planting here, but underneath that is where the drain is, and I've never seen that drain. It has riprap in front of it, but I've never seen the drain. And there's some more drain clogging, and right there is the drain, but I don't have any idea how much water actually went through it. As usual, when I am in distress, I call my son. And I said, what am I going to do? And he said, I'll go take care of it. So Saturday morning around noon, he went and started digging bales out from the drains under there. And I'm not sure, what are these stakes for, John? Are they the...
Steel reinforcing steel bars that were used to anchor the bales.
Upstream? So when they pulled loose, they came with the bars?
Well, the bars are to hold them in place.
Yeah, but they were supposed to be in place.
Upstream.
Way up close to, they floated with their bars.
With the bars? Yeah, well, there was enough water flowing down that railroad ditch to force those bales out. I mean, it was an extreme amount of water. That's impressive. Obviously, yeah.
Coming from the border basin?
It's not, well, that's one small contributor, but that area coming down that ditch of the railroad drains, huge drainage area going as far west as almost Depot Square. And some up on Main Street and up above empties into that ditch and comes down there. It's a tremendous amount of water. The straw bales were in there. We had just worked on the ditch to try to improve the profile of the ditch to allow it to carry more water. And doing the erosion sediment control for that is why we put the straw bales in the ditch, along with the straw and the seed like we typically do when we disturb ground like that. But I don't think we could have anticipated, according to our rain gauge today, we got 4.4 inches of rain over the 3-day period, which is more than the total we've had for in a month for the past 6 months. I mean, it was just a tremendous.
And you repaved it too, so it's flooded over there.
Yeah, well, we did that to keep the water from crossing over to get into your property. And since we had done that, it had worked quite well.
Yeah.
The issue here was
too much
the
rain.
large amount of water and the velocity and the force behind that flowing down that railroad ditch did uproot some of the straw bales.
But I think there's another issue in there somewhere, and that is while we did, and the contouring stuff is going to work great for most things, is that we didn't change the size of the drain itself. The drain that runs under the road there is the same size as when you started contouring it. Right. So while the ditch will hold more water, it won't go any faster through the drain because the drain's a fairly small drain down there.
I don't remember exactly what the size is. I mean, it's
10 inches maybe.
No, it's bigger than that.
About this big, 12?
It's in the picture. It's in one of the pictures.
However, it has I've seen some significant rain since we changed the grade or cross slope on the road, and it had been able to handle it. But this
looking back on it, was just far too much water. The issue here was the straw bale. There's no argument about that. The straw bale clogged the pipe there in this case.
Right.
That's the drain.
Yeah. It's a fairly small drain.
Yeah, and I don't have anything, any sort of scale to know what it, but small would do it. More hay. This was after he got it unstopped and the water had started to flow again. And it made, you can tell from the whatever that is, from the suction, yes, how fast it went down. And then this is connected, sort of, but just something that ought to otherwise be considered. I told you there were 3 drains. There's one in my yard, there's the one that we're talking about over by the railroad tracks, and then this is the 3rd one. It's in the corner of the Pecan and Railroad Street intersection, and it's collapsed. I don't know what has happened. It's been that way as long as I've known it. I don't know if trucks ran over it or what. So this is what's supposed to carry rainwater away. And you couldn't even get a good-sized groundhog in that. It's probably...
That looks like a very, something that goes well back into our history, in terms of the construction of it.
Way back, and I think the only thing that's holding it now, there may not even be a drain. There's a lateral rock here, crosswise. Then there's a couple of angled ones, and there's this one that's just about to fall off of the top of the rock, and this one. And I don't know if there's a pipe back there or not.
I would ask that question.
I'm sorry, I should have shown you.
At the edge of,
Maybe that is a groundhog.
not in your yard.
This is Pecan,
Right.
and this is Railroad.
That one honestly doesn't receive much water because of the elevation it's at. The one in your property there is at a lower elevation than that one, but I mean, we can certainly open that thing up. We have at times, there used to be shrubbery planted down there.
There was a big yucca.
Yeah,
or something.
Something growing up there. We removed that to clear that opening, but yeah, it does look like the opening may be closed to a degree. We can open that up.
So this is the cause. The effect was that there was nobody to call. The town was on vacation. There wasn't an emergency number. There wasn't anybody. There just wasn't. So that would be my other request.
Mr. Kelly, would you care to comment on that issue?
Yes, we actually had folks out on Friday and Saturday. Mr. Dew was one. Jamie Chaffin was in that inlet on Friday and cleaned the hay bale out on Friday. In terms of being able to contact somebody, the way I found out about it, I was out of town. Rick sent me something, and I told him that I felt sure John was out, notified Miss Rosenbaum, and sure enough, the guys were out checking drain inlets. When it got reclogged up, I can't explain it at that point in time, but the method of contact, and we probably need to work on a better way of communicating that to the public, is if you call Central Dispatch, they call him and Jamie Chaffin.
Central Dispatch is 911?
Yes. And if you call that number and report it, it will get reported to our folks. And if you go to the town website on Ask Abingdon, there's a link. It's very difficult. We can do a better job of it, I agree. But if you go on there, you can look under Public Works and you can click on storm drainage issues, and it will give you a brief explanation.
If this was coming up to my front door, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Is there a non-emergency number that we could, can we get well, I mean, it's not a non-emergency when you've got water coming. I don't know how.
It's not a physical emergency.
Like, is there a phone number that we can either assign or buy in the future that that is for these kind of calls that, you know, that,
When nobody's choking, and nobody's being murdered or robbed or...
So there might be, but you got to have somebody who can communicate, who gets the call and communicates it. I think from what John told me earlier, the central dispatch thing has worked pretty well over the years.
They have, we give them a list of people to contact in case of different situations, and you know, whether it's traffic signals being out or flooding across Main Street, that sort of thing. So they just go down a list based on what it is, you know, sewer backup or something like that, and contact our staff. But it's all through central dispatch.
So non-life threatening, we can call central dispatch, is okay?
They do have a non-emergency number.
that's what I was getting to.
I wouldn't see why it couldn't be published on our website.
Right, yeah, would be good. Because what-
676 number, I mean, it's...
Yeah, because what we're doing is, we're giving the county, we're turning our responsibilities over to the county and expecting them to contact our people.
Well, but that's...
Well, yeah, that's the way it goes.
Well,
I understand. The reason I asked that is because I had a non-emergency, but it wasn't with Public Works or the town of Abingdon. And I think I talked to Mr. Kelly, and he told me the non-emergency number for Chief Sullivan's office. And so, you know, I know there is a non-emergency number so that you're not calling 911. So if we could find that non-emergency number and maybe do a better job of publishing it, then I think that could probably help go a long ways to help solve the problem. And, you know, the hay bales, we're really, really sorry, but it kind of was an accident.
Because I mean, it's what, as John says, it's what should have been done. It just was too much water. I think what panicked me was that I couldn't find anybody.
Right.
You know, I could have called the fire department or the...
Did the water get in your building?
No.
Okay.
No, it got up, the straw did get over to the ramp, to the handicap ramp up there. So the water got that far and carried the straw up there, and it's still in place if any of you want to come see it.
I bet somebody will come help clean all that up.
and you didn't see there's a ditch about 8 inches deep that's washed out that probably needs a little gravel, and she has the Nolechucky River gravel. So, one other thing while we're on this, I would like to ask is that once that a retention pond or any type of water abatement system is put in, who inspects? I know we inspect it before it goes in, probably. Who inspects it afterwards to make sure that it's getting proper flow and holding the correct amount and not releasing too much?
Well, it's designed and constructed according to state regulations, erosion sediment control and stormwater management regulations. That was put in with the Barter 2 development I don't know if that's 10, 12 years ago.
About 10 years ago.
Okay. It was before my time here in this position. Sure. But, you know, I assume and I feel certain it was constructed and designed according to those standards and installed. Once it's put in, the owner of them is responsible for the maintenance.
Do they have to, well, but how do they know the proper flow, and how do they determine the proper flow, the water going out, that it's not releasing too much water, that it's in a timely manner?
The structures themselves are sized to do that, to release it at the proper flow rate.
Even if there's a lot of silt in them, or a lot of gravel in them from up on the Barter Green, or, I mean, it's in other words, they never get stopped up or anything. They're continually working?
No, I mean, I'm sure there's some that do get stopped up. Now, that would restrict flow instead of allow, you know, more flow to come through if they do get stopped up.
Right.
But it is the owner's responsibility to maintain that. Now, we started fairly recently, you know, doing signed agreements every time we overlook and inspect an installation like that states in there all the maintenance or stipulations of maintenance and what is required. It's more extensive than what was done previously, but we do have that in place now for newer development.
Right. And because we have so many going in, and so many things going in, then once a year they send you whether they're in compliance, so that we know they're in compliance, and we just don't leave it up to where it's a good, you know, kind of a good neighbor policy. They have to submit something so we know that they're actually doing the proper maintenance and are in compliance.
Well, that doesn't require any kind of submission, but we do have the opportunity, we're given the right to enter private property and do an inspection if we feel like or notice that there is an issue or something wrong, there's something noticeably wrong with it.
We actually, John and Jamie and I actually went out a week ago and looked at that particular thing up at Stage 2. We looked at it.
Well, it's really interesting because after that, after the rain event, there's no water in it. I mean, literally, it was all gone. You would think it would have been retaining some. As it drained down, there'd be 3 or 4 feet in it, because that's what it has been. It's completely gone.
They're designed to drain out completely, not to hold water. It's
As a matter of fact,
the size of the piping and the orifices, the openings in the structures are sized to slow the flow rate down exiting the entire basin. But it's not designed to hold water.
So what you're saying is probably going to be a reoccurring event down there because of that?
Not necessarily,
I'm sorry, I was just asking the engineer about it, so, I'm sorry.
Well, I have to admit, I don't have a degree in engineering, but I do, I think, understand something about the nature of those ponds, and they're not designed to hold water forever. They're designed to, let it run out, and some of it runs out, and a good bit of it goes into the ground. And, and I think I'm correct about that.
You are correct on that, and if your question is related to just that facility there, and its contribution to what happened Friday and Saturday, I don't think it contributed to that necessarily. Yes, there's water coming out of it at a controlled or a reduced rate of what's going into the facility, but what caused that Saturday or Friday was that straw bale being uprooted and blocking the pipe or a portion of the pipe going across Pecan Street.
Well, we actually don't know. We know that that's part of it, but we don't know if the hay bales hadn't been there, if any of it would have backed up or not, because it wasn't a big enough drain for it to go through. Well, it could have gone through quick enough.
Well, I think that's a matter of engineering, and I think John we've looked at it, we can continue to look at it and everything. It's not a matter of conjecture, it's a matter of plain and simple engineering.
I think one point that has been raised, though, that is, should be considered in the future, particularly as we bring on a new compliance officer or handle something in the future, probably ought to be, a regular examination or exercising our right to, have a look at those, water retention facilities and make sure that they are maintained properly. And, as part of a code compliance thing, I would encourage you to look at that.
We've had them looking at them, not for that particular reason, but for mowing and, keeping them looking attractive.
Well, I think when we talked about the same thing wasn't down there at Fern and Hickox about the way that was, what happened.
And that one was clogged too,
Right.
So that was the...
Well, yes, exactly.
Well, in this situation, would it be unreasonable to get Public Works to go down there and make sure that the drains are not clogged with silt or whatever, and if they are, to clean them out?
Let's say you feel like
Certainly.
Yeah, and they did a great job. I mean, I don't see anything, because they cut those ditches down. I would have thought they'd have handled anything coming and going. I mean, literally, anything coming and going. The hay bales are the contributor, but then after they pulled the hay bales out, and I saw how small that, the receptacle was, the drain was to accept the water, I just wonder if somewhere along the line that needs to be a little bit bigger, so that it will handle more water, so that situation won't happen again.
I can tell you that I know this about stormwater. Minimum Standard 19 says if you change the sizes of the drains, you have to do pre and post water calculations. It's not a small undertaking.
One thing I can add about this one, whether or not we even have the ability to alter that drain, that's actually on railroad right-of-way.
Right.
So I'm not sure if we even legally have the right to alter that one.
And the railroad hasn't been very
look at
the railroad hasn't been very good. They haven't been very good neighbors to us, have they? They don't cut the grass around. They don't cut the grass, beside the grass grows tall beside the tracks and stuff like that. They don't act in a neighborly way, do you think, or do you think?
I don't know that
Let's not go on the record.
Come on now.
All right, what else can we say about this?
Well, one thing I would say, Mr. Mayor, is I do think one of the things that has come up tonight is we can do a better job of publishing how people can get a hold of our crews when these events happen. Publishing the number in a way that people have access to it so that Janet doesn't have to call her son out. And that brings up another issue. You know, we've seen this over in Country Club when we were dealing with that, and the horror story of the one guy cleaning the storm drain, and it just shot up in the air like 30 feet and then gushed down. Had anybody been downstream, they would have just been wiped away.
Or he could have been sucked down.
Yeah, he could have been sucked down the drain. So it's a very dangerous situation for anybody to be involved with, town staff or God forbid something happened to you or your family. So I think the best thing for us to do is to try to get it published better, how to get a hold of us when we have these events. And do know that John and I talk virtually before every known rain event coming and going. Are we going to have troops out looking at the storm drains? And we always have people out doing that. You know, we had to get them out to get the signs out on the road when the water's going across the road. So the guys are very diligent in looking at those things, and this is just one of those almost, I guess you call it an act of God to get that much rain in a short period of time. And the hay bales or straw bales were there because they're mandated to be there by the state when we do the erosion protection and sowing of the grass. And the fact that it pulled up rebar tells you that it was a very forceful event.
Well, and
that's about all I have to add.
Right, and to take up from Mr. Dew, he had texted me back or emailed me back on Friday that the crews were out and that he would try to get somebody to come by and get them. So, you know, from whatever time that they were unstopped by Jamie and his crew, and Jamie's not here for us to, ask, but from that time to how they got back in or got in the water flow, that would be an interesting question to see exactly why that happened. I went down and looked at it, and I told Janet I wouldn't take them out because I didn't know how big the drain was, and I was afraid that I would get sucked down. I was afraid I'd get sucked down the drain because it was probably waist deep there.
That's what Jamie said. He says up to his armpits.
I would add to doing a better job of publishing the non-emergency number to also publishing, throwing Mr. Morgan under the bus, but publishing the mayor's number because the mayor's cell phone, not his private phone, but his cell phone number probably should be published along with those non-emergency events.
Do we need a motion for that?
Well, all the other ones, and I didn't, when I got home, I didn't see a message from Janet, but all the other ones in the past, they've wound up with a message on my answering machine at home. Of course, I wasn't at home, but Humphreys knows how to find me. So.
Right, and we thought we'd handle it. Now, to be honest with you, we thought we'd handle it very well because that I hollered at Greg and Cecile and everybody, and then John told he was pretty quick that somebody would be down there to get it. So we thought it was all all kind of finalized. But, the best laid plans of my city.
Cell phone I keep with me 24/7.
No, I wasn't going to call you. We just emailed out. So.
Well, I hope we're going to have a dry day or two.
It rained today.
Well, it did in some places, I can tell you that.
We're glad you didn't have any water in your structure. But I know this is not going to help you out or anything, but Chief McCormick and I pumped out a basement, had 27 inches of rain, water in it Saturday. So, I mean,
Well, I don't have a basement, so you
Bob, it was interesting as we were talking about numbers. I didn't know what number to tell her to call because 911 is, I always thought was for life-threatening emergencies. And so I told her, I said, well, you know, if your basement had flooded, the fire department would come and would have bailed you outside. You know, she had that information that the fire department, good guys, will come over there anytime. So.
Well, and let me make one other comment, and that is to say how much, as a council, we appreciate what you've done over around Park Street and that general area. You know, that's a very up-and-coming neighborhood, and the fact that you and the Humphreys and some other folks have really made an investment in that neighborhood is really producing a very positive change in that neighborhood, and it's making it a very vibrant and growing place. That's recognized and appreciated. We want to be good neighbors. We want to encourage you. We want to help you to stay dry over there.
Thank you.
And we will do what we can there. And I dare say we'll be having some further discussion about this, but appreciate you bringing the issue to our attention, and hopefully we'll get by a day or two without another problem. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the council tonight?
I
Yes,
just want to
ma'am.
mention that we're supposed to start installation of the artwork on the signal boxes tomorrow, so in the next week or so, hopefully all of that will be done.
Okay, and those will be wraps that are going on them, is that right?
The first one will be at Cummings and Main Street in front of the federal courthouse.
Okay, and remind us who's sponsoring that. It's Main Street.
That is
And
sponsored by Abingdon Main Street, and we received funding from the town of Abingdon along with a grant from the Virginia Main Street, and then an anonymous donor has given us funds to make it happen.
And they're going to be very picturesque. These are the communication boxes that are around in different parts of the town, and look forward to seeing that. Okay, anybody else that needs to address the council? Okay, folks, we have a couple of appointments this evening. We have for our consideration an appointment to the Planning Commission to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Wayne Cray, who resigned from that position. We have the appointment of one member from the Planning Commission to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and an appointment of one member to fill the unexpired term of James Hagee, who resigned from the Sinking Springs Cemetery Commission. What's your pleasure on this? Do we want to make a nomination or two, or do we want to go into executive session?
I can make a motion to appoint Jan Reeves from the Planning Commission to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and to appoint Martha Keys to the Sinking Springs Cemetery Committee to fill the unexpired term of James Hagee, who resigned from the position.
Okay.
I would second that.
All right. So again, we have nominations for Jan Reeves to fill the position on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we're noting that she is currently a member of the Planning Commission, and then Ms. Martha Keys to fill the position on the Cemetery Commission. We have a motion and a second for both of those. Is there any further discussion?
I'd just like to note that the Planning Commission recommended, and Ms. Reeves said she would serve on the zoning
Board of Zoning
Appeals, if it was the will of the town council.
Okay. Any further discussion? If our clerk would call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. Okay, council, that leaves the position on the Planning Commission. Do we want to handle that one tonight, go into executive session, or what's your pleasure?
You know, I say this because I have a comment in this. I move that we accept the recommendation of the planning director to appoint Chris Berger to the Planning Commission, and that we maintain the records of all of the other applicants and refer them for any future openings on our boards.
Now, it's my understanding that the recommendation that you're referencing from our Director of Planning was really the action or the recommendation of the commission as a whole. Would that be correct, sir?
It was the recommendation of the staff as a whole.
No.
Okay, the staff as a whole.
It wasn't the Planning Commission.
Right, and I would second that motion.
Okay, and I'm not going to try and repeat it, I don't think, but I believe the gist of it is that we would accept the recommendation of the staff to appoint Mr. James Berger.
Chris
Berger to the Planning Commission. And I believe we're acknowledging that we had a number of other fine applicants for those positions. And that we might anticipate future openings where those individuals might have an opportunity to serve. So we would be hanging on to those.
Correct.
Those applications.
One question.
Yes.
Do we have a time limit on how long we keep those? Do we keep them in?
I would like to keep all of these for this fiscal year.
Be a year. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Right.
Very good.
If we want, I mean, I don't know if we even have that in there.
I don't know that we do.
But a year's good.
Yeah. Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I would ask at this point if council, if there's any information that needs to be brought to the attention of the committee or the council. Mr. Humphries?
I really don't have anything. There's two things I'd like to say, though. I want to remind everybody about the tractor show. It's going to be the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of July coming up at Fairview. Please come out and support it. I think you'll enjoy it. Also, if you have any children, bring those because they really will enjoy it. The other thing is I just wanted to, one of the things that I don't think we put down or have, but when we notify Mr. Berger of his selection, is the responsibility he has for receiving the training for planning commissioner.
Yeah.
And if that's a requirement, because that might be a deal breaker, as well as him having to put in his the financial disclosure.
Very good. Anything else, sir? Vice Mayor Lowe.
I want to tell the chief of police that losing 2 officers is actually, for you, an attribute to your leadership because other people want your officers. So I'm sorry that you're looking, but I do think that just shows your leadership in selecting and training your staff. And I just, I'm sorry you're having to go through that. I've done that before, but, it's an attribute to you.
I appreciate it. I just wish they weren't 10-year veterans.
I know.
Yeah.
I saw that, and I know.
10 years experience in 2 days, and
Yeah.
that's bad.
I know. I've had that happen in private business, and it's very difficult to replace that kind of experience. I'd also like to ask, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this downstairs because we were really busy, but for the coming year, will it be difficult for the council to get a report on the contingency monies that are spent per department? Would that be a difficult thing to give the council a report?
Just the contingency lines?
The contingency lines in the town, all the contingency lines.
I think we can do that.
Okay. And that's really all I have.
Mr. Howard?
I just had one question. What is a sawdust festival?
Oh.
Maybe I missed something.
Is that at Holston Mountain, or?
I don't know.
It's a Holston Mountain Artisans event where they
Yeah.
have their wood carvers, and I think they all come in and they make
sawdust.
Sawdust.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you.
All righty. Very good. Ms. During?
Well, downstairs, we got a copy of a letter applauding our chief McCormick. And I think Kathy Lowe downstairs reiterated that this letter happened to be to him this month, but how outstanding and how helpful our public service staff is. And there's many, many letters that have come in from time to time. Thank you. These are always, they're always touching me. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Very good. Okay, and anything else?
No, thank you.
All righty, and I believe I'm about talked out. And so that being said, I would note that we have a couple of events coming up in the month of July. It's going to be an exciting time for us. First of all, we continue every Thursday night to have the jams at the Abingdon Market Pavilion. We've had some first-rate bands there this year, and I would encourage you to come out and participate, or if you're like me, at my house, it's just like being there. We also have movies at the Muster Ground on July the 17th, and on the 31st of July, we start the Virginia Highlands Festival. It'll be running through August the 9th, and the August the 1st and 2nd will be the Civil War weekend. As noted earlier, the Sawdust Festival is coming up on the 1st, and then on the 3rd of August, we'll be having our council work session and regular meetings. I will ask this while I'm here, is there Ms. Rosenbaum, you can help me with this, is there a desire or need to have a mid-month council work session?
I think Mr. Kelly would join me in the recommendation that yes, we would be needed.
Okay, and let's just firm up that date while we're thinking about it, please.
That's the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah.
That would be the 15th of July.
Okay.
It's the same night of the Highlands Festival preview.
All right. Okay, very good. Hopefully we can all make that. All righty, council, is there anything else we need to touch on tonight? I want to thank everyone for being here with us this evening. We appreciate all the support and encouragement that we get, and thank you for making us aware of some things we need to know about.
My second is, so mid-month work session.